Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Colleen, and for those of you that are familiar with me, welcome back. If this is your first time visiting with me, please hit the like and subscribe button and you'll be able to catch all my videos as they come out. Today I'm going back to my old ratty homemade cookbook with all of the recipes that have been, written on bits of envelopes and papers that have been handed to me over the years, and I am looking for a particular recipe for prairie style potatoes, which was one that our family has used for occasions just all over the place. So it's, I guess, kind of similar to maybe a twice stuffed potato or something like that, but it's got a few twists in it. So it's a really good side dish, and tonight I'm making it for dinner alongside maybe some fried chicken and some green beans maybe from my pantry. So I will get things gathered up, and I will be back here before you know it. Now, the first thing we need for a potato dish, of course, is potatoes. And I have diced up, just to, small bite-sized pieces, this 4 cups of diced potatoes. And I'm just going to rinse them, put them into the pot on the stove, and begin to boil them. They'll cook quite quickly. So I think I'm going to, you want to work with them when they're a little more al dente, because this recipe is going to go into the oven. So we're going to dump that in there and give it a rinse. And maybe rinse it a couple times if you need to. We don't need all the starch on here because we're going to make a cheese roux to go on. Now, something that might make this dish a little different, and you can tell it's an old-fashioned dish when you do things like this, is that I need about ½ a cup of diced onions, and we're going to put them right into the cooking water with the potatoes so that they cook at the same time. It will definitely add flavor to the potatoes. I've got an onion that's got a add core in it, so I'm just going to take that out of there. So, how is everybody? And let me know if your family's ever made anything similar to this recipe. It's called, in my old book here, I think one of my cousins gave me this recipe. I'm sorry I didn't write down who wrote it. I usually write down the names of whoever has given me a recipe so that I can properly credit them, and each time I make the recipe it reminds me of them and brings back memories that I had maybe forgotten, but hadn't been drawn to the front of my mind for a while. So next, yeah, you could see this wasn't a very big onion, and then I lost the heart. So I'm just going to chop this fairly roughly. I'm going to add this to the cooking water, and then I'm going to take this to the stove. Now, I've brought you over to the stove so that you can watch this process of making this simple roux that will definitely add the really deliciousness to this potato dish. So you can probably hear the potatoes bubbling beside you. They're almost cooked, so it's time to get on with this step. I'm going to turn on the stove, and I'm going to put 4 tablespoons of butter into my saucepan. and I'm just going to give that a minute to melt down. And while it does, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, or about 1 big clove of garlic into this mix. Now, I'm sure you could probably add the garlic to the potatoes and onions in the pot, but this just provides a different level of flavor, I guess. It's each thing that we put in just creates another layer, and having this sauteed rather than boiled will definitely make a difference. Now we've got all of the butter in the pot melted, and I'm just going to add into this mixture 1/4 cup of plain white flour. This is what's going to make our roux. And I'm going to stir this in, and you'll notice right away that it gets absorbed into the butter and is starting to cook. Now, it's okay for this to bubble. You want it to cook so you can cook out the flour flavor, but you definitely don't want it to scorch. So keep that in mind, that you need to keep it moving. Might just turn that down just a bit. Might be a little bit high. Now I'm going to start measuring out the milk. We're going to put 2 cups of milk into this dish, or whatever I can squeeze out of this jug that I'm working with over here. Today's a cool day in my town. It's not as warm as the past few have been, but that's okay. It's already quite dry here in the lower part of the foothills, and we're kind of looking forward to some rain. That always at this time of the year, after the gardens have been planted, you definitely want to have some rain if you can find some. So I'm going to just start to slowly add in the milk and stir, because now at this point this is going to get lumpy if we're not on it full on. And once you've got lumps in there, they're hard to get out. So that's 1 cup in. And I'm going to add 1 more cup, or thereabouts. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it. And while I'm watching it here, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt to the pot. Not much. I've salted the potatoes, and I'm putting in cheese, which is salty, and a bit of bacon. Oh, I'm making a mess on my stove too. And so I probably don't have to add too much to this cheese mixture. But the thing to do is to taste it as you go along, because each layer that we do needs to be properly seasoned. A little more. And then we'll just bring this up to a boil and drain those potatoes and move on. Now while I'm still waiting on this, I'm just going to reach right over my head and grab this. I have a bowl here that has 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs and 1 tablespoon of butter in it. And I'm going to stick it in my microwave oven, and I'm going to add 10 seconds to it. Well, no, that's a fib. I'm going to put 30 seconds and try and remember to take it out at, maybe 5 seconds. There we go, that's 10 seconds. I'm sure that's enough. Nope, I'm wrong. Let's continue on. Now, I went with a scant amount of flour because I didn't want this to be super thick, because I'm putting so much cheese in it. But if you find that it's not thick enough for you, then by all means add more flour to the mix. There it goes. because I'm just making a buttered panko crumb for the top of this. It just said breadcrumbs in the old recipe, but all I had was panko, so that's what I've used. There's a few steps to this dish, but really it's it comes together quite quickly. So don't be put off by the number of steps that I've gone through, because let me tell you, it's worth it in the end. Today the cheese that I'm using is a mix of cheese that's old white cheddar and mozzarella. And I have more in my cup than the recipe called for, so I probably won't use quite all of it. Or maybe I'll reserve some just for the top afterwards. But the recipe says a half a pound. I'm going to use 2 cups once we get this to the boil. And you still need to keep this moving because you have to keep in mind it's still got flour in it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and drain these potatoes while I'm waiting for that to come back to the boil, minding that I'm coming back. Ooh, it's getting really velvety right now, which is exactly what we want it to do. I did go ahead and get the shredded cheese, but you know, grating it yourself is an absolutely wonderful way of cutting out some of the ingredients, because this cheese, I don't imagine you can notice it, but it's got what appears to be a white powder on it. Now, I'm not sure what that is in this one, but I do know that they use different kinds of dusting, sometimes potato starch, to make sure that the pieces don't stick together. So if you're watching what it is you're taking into your body and you're trying to eliminate any additional and unnecessary things, you could definitely be grating this cheese yourself. And this has come where we need it to come. I'm going to turn it down, way down, and I'm going to add about 2 cups of cheese to this mixture. And now I'm going to swap out my whisk and go back to my spoon. And there you have it, folks. Beautiful and creamy. Now, let's get back to the counter and go to work on the rest of this. Okay, I've brought you back with me over here to the counter. I've drained the potatoes, and I'm going to just put them right into this buttered baking dish. And then we're going to make a few additions. I have 3 pieces of bacon that I cooked earlier in the air fryer. And why not? Because all of these tools definitely make cooking a lot more fun. They cut down time, and while I love to cook, I don't want to spend my entire life in the kitchen, so I use whatever gadgets that will make this go quicker for me. So this is 3 pieces of bacon. I'm going to mix that in, and I've got 2 spring onions, and I'm just going to chop them. And they're going to go into this mixture. There we go. And I'm going to set this right out of my way so that I hope you can see what's going on. I'll bring this closer to me. And maybe I'll just wipe my hands quickly. Whoops. Because they're covered with baking grease now. Okay, so I'm going to now add in the cheese mix that we've just finished. make these crazy ooey gooey potatoes. That's a lot of ooey gooiness for sure. Now these are going to go into the oven after I've given them a bit of pepper on the top. Look at that stringy goodness. And I'm just going to put a little pepper on them. Get that on the top. And now last but not least, I'm going to add the buttered breadcrumbs to the top. And this is a step you could skip. In fact, you could skip the bacon and you could probably skip the spring onion too. And it would still be a delicious dish. I've got the oven preheated at 375 degrees. And this is going to go into the oven for about, I'm just going to check these potatoes, about 15 minutes because the potatoes are just about cooked. So I would say about 15 minutes should bring it all together, but I'll test them again when I go bring them out of the oven. So I'll be back shortly. Here we are, folks. It has come out of the oven. It's just finished bubbling, so it's still really hot. You probably should leave it to set maybe 5 or so minutes just so that the cheese can come back together again. But for this purpose, I'm going to scoop some out onto this plate and show you what we're having for dinner tonight. Oh boy, this looks so good. Now, if that doesn't just add a little something to your regular old potato serving, I'm not sure what would. This is easily a dish that you can make ahead of time and just set it aside and then reheat it at the last minute if you like. But this is what the dish looks like. There's the potatoes, still steaming from the pan. Folks, I just wanted to remind you that all of the recipes for the things that I make in my videos is in the description box below the video. So the recipes are in there, and any hints or tips that I forget to tell you on screen, I also add down there. I'd also like to just add how much I appreciate each and every one of you that have subscribed to the channel. I am overwhelmed with how many people would be interested in watching. I just found out from going into the analytics that over 80% of the people who watch my channel don't subscribe. So I'd be interested to know why you didn't subscribe when you have watched the channel multiple times. And if there's anything else that I can do to improve it, then I'd be happy to give that a try. In the meantime, please like this, subscribe, share this recipe with your friends because I'm sure that they will enjoy it as much as you will. So folks, until next time, I hope that you all stay well and safe, and I will see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. So good.